Hello and welcome back everybody to the Foodbuild factory, where today we're going to take a look at the Maritime Menace. That's the guy you can see on screen right now, and as always I'm going to show you some gameplay in the first half of the video, and in the second half of the video we're going to take a look at the perks, mutations, equipment and everything else. So what is this going to be about? Now, this character is going to be about something that I wanted wanted to do for a while now, and contrary to what you would believe by the way I was facing this there turret here, we are actually a vats melee build. The reason I didn't vats that there turret, by the way, is that for some reason, for quite a while now, it just doesn't let you vats it. For some reason, this particular turret here, I can never seem to vats it. I think it doesn't even have to do with the fact that it's not aggroed. By the way, by the time you're encountering it, it just doesn't work for some reason. Anyways, that's not the what the video is going to be about. So what the video is going to be about, as I said, we're going to play as a vats melee build, and this is something I wanted to. I have done this once, but I really wanted to revisit it nowadays, because yeah, nowadays we do have access to the vats legendary effects on melee weapons. The most exciting ones are probably less vats cost because, yeah, and other than with a lot of rifles and so on, there's not a whole lot you can do when it comes to melee weapons in terms of modifications that make them more AP friendly. And the other noticeable effects are better vats crit chance, which is the one we are having on our weapon. It's a third star effect, meaning that with 23 luck, which we do actually have due to another addition, which is the legendary power armor, yeah, we can get a crit on every second successful vats hit. So did fudge it a little bit here because I didn't use the vats crit, but yeah, we will see that during the video. I'm not talking shit. It's something I've done quite a few times at this point, but yeah, you will going to see it sooner or later. And lastly, we would have the legendary effect, better vats crits, which would be perfect on this weapon here. But sadly I don't have that. The weapon we are wielding is an anti-armor, limb damage, and faster vats crits Tenderizer. As I just said, I would prefer better vats crits instead of limb damage. But beggars can be choosers, and yeah, I found this weapon here for I think 800 caps or something in a player vendor, and I just wanted to try it because it was actually working on a power armor set with all luck enhanced pieces, meaning that yeah, we have 5 extra luck from power armor, and that means that finally I can try to make such a vet centered build, getting a crit on every second hit in power armor, and that landed itself perfectly. Now, this is not going to be my last vets melee character. In fact, the next melee character I'm going to do is going to be another vets melee character, but outside of power armor. I know there's a lot of people who don't really want to use power armor and melee together for some reason. I mean, obviously, if you want to go down to low health, you get massive benefits to your strength from unyielding armor, so it's definitely a good reason not to do it in power armor, but yeah, that's what we are going to take a look at here. And another interesting fact right out of the bat about this build here is that usually you don't want to use vats in power armor for a simple reason that you're running through a ton of fusion cores. And even though we're not crazily invested into sparing fusion cores or fusion core drainage on this occasion, in fact we only run the power user perk, which is just 3 points of perk investment here. For some reason, melee in vats does not drain your fusion cores at all. Like, I mean, it does drain your fusion core, but really not crazy. Like, I don't think I have run out of a single fusion core the entire time I was playing with this build, which is quite crazy. I mean, comparing it to a commando character or something like that, if you use that in vats, even if you are using a repair bobblehead combined with vented legs and the power user perk, you do run through your fusion cores rather fast. And yeah, that's just simply not a problem when you are using melee in vats in power armor for some reason. I mean, you could argue that we're rather slow swinging and just therefore not burning through that much AP as we would with other weapons. But actually, the first time I tried this build, I was using a anti-armor vats crit and faster vats crit switchblade, which was rather rapid, and we were burning through our AP like crazy, and in fact we still do burn through AP quite fast. So that's not really the reasoning here why we don't use up a lot of fusion cores. So I can't really explain it. It just seems to work very differently compared to ranged combat in power armor in that regard. By the way, I was hoping that while I was clearing those guys out, the Scorch Beast would decide to land, but it just doesn't seem to be the case here. I mean, spoiler alert, if we would fight it, it would go as you would probably expect. Okay, maybe we are lucky now. I mean, I don't have a shotgun or anything on me to cripple the guy, but yeah, he just doesn't seem to like to land today. Definitely, bigger targets like Scorch Beast and the like are kind of the weak point of this build here. So, not sure if it would have been particularly fun to watch this fight either way. We're just going to move on from here on, and well, let's hope that he's deciding to land, but come on, guy. I mean, just come down here. Okay, there are some other enemies, but yeah, let's just move on from here. I mean, we are going to fight some bit more tanky guys in form of super mutants and so on, and you will see how we are doing against tankier enemies. It's definitely possible to fight a Scorch Beast, though. If it decides to land, it's not going to be too bothersome. The only thing is that you will definitely run out of AP 1 or 2 times, and therefore have to wait for like 10 seconds or so in order to regain your action points and then fight along. But you can just swing at it in the meantime without using vats, so not really lost time in my opinion. On this occasion we do have to initiate the fight without vats, by the way, just because these guys aren't aggroed, so yeah, I couldn't vats them. As you could see there, we do proc, we did proc, Born Survivor, and injected a stim pack. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, just so you don't get disappointed by the end of the video, I mean, it's a bit late already, but yeah, I do in fact have 2 mutations at the moment, or no, 3 even, that are suppressed, so that's just because I just, like 20 minutes ago or so, bought the serums, directly used them, immediately used them, and decided to now record the video, because that was actually the last thing I wanted to have in order to fine-tune the build a little bit in a realistic manner. I mean, there's a lot more we could do to the build in terms of equipment, mainly. One thing I already mentioned is, we could have better effects on our weapon. In fact, only the secondary effect I would change if I had to choose, from limb damage to extra vats crit damage. But mainly what we're talking about here is what we could do is, currently we are getting our 23 luck that are important for this build by the means of having 5 legendary power armor pieces with extra luck and 3 legendary luck from the legendary perks. If I would to grind out, legendary luck in order to get 5 from that, that would mean 3 pieces of legendary power armor with extra luck would be enough, and therefore we would have room for 2 pieces with AP refresh, and that would tremendously help the character. But yeah, that's just something that's not in the realm of possibility in the near future. I mean, mainly talking about maxing out legendary luck here would mean I have to grind a ton of levels, and in fact this is not a character which I will be making a ton of use out of legendary luck, so yeah. I think we're fine here. And overall, the the mutations that are suppressed that we are talking about here are what is it? Bird Bones, Eagle Eyes, and Healing Factor. So Healing Factor is pretty much redundant. We don't really need to take that into effect because um, yeah, it just makes our Stimpaks less useful. But we do run Class Freak, that's something I should say here, and we do have the first aid perk, so we're not losing out on too much in that regard once the suppression from the mutation serum wears off. The more notable debuffs that we're getting would be from Eagle Eyes and Bird Bones, but due to the fact that we are running Class Freak, we're talking about -1 strength each, which isn't optimal for a melee character, obviously, but yeah. Overall, 2 less strength aren't going to make or break the build, to be honest here. The performance should be overall very similar, and yeah. I think we can all agree that it's okay that I have these mutations suppressed at the moment, but yeah. In addition to that, I'm doing something that I usually don't do, at least not often. I do use one buff here at the moment, which is Yaoguai Ribs. Combined with the Carnivore mutation, those give us 20% extra melee damage. But this is something I feel rather fine with because, yeah, in fact you could use roasted mutant hound meat, which would work exactly the same way. And yeah, those buffs are kind of abundant. Overall, the thing or the reason why I'm not using buffs usually is just because, yeah, I don't want to showcase what a build is capable of if you're running it under peak circumstances, meaning that you have every single chem injected, because you can just do a lot doing that. But when it comes to melee, yeah, a lot of these buffs are readily available, especially mutant hound meat, for example. Yeah, you know how often you fight mutant hounds. The buff lasts for half an hour, so you're just not going to run out of this buff. That's it, basically. So that's why I felt I can use it, and ultimately it doesn't do too much either way. So it's probably time to talk a little bit more about the build. We are actually doing rather fine and rapidly running out of playtime, which I used to talk about the build. But yeah, doing the quick version here. Starting off this build, it felt like it's going to be a disaster. It really didn't turn out to be all that great. But once everything came together, meaning that we had the ability to do a crit on every second hit chance, we do have all our mutations now. Firstly, I tried to do this build on one of my gunslinger characters and slowly grind my way up to gaining all the Slagger perks, but really not having access to Slugger and Martial Artist and Incisor made leveling this character a chore. So yeah, I ultimately decided to just waste some perk points on grinding, on upgrading my legendary luck on my melee character. So yeah, anyways, the fully done build, as we see it now, is actually a ton of fun, works really well. It's especially great for mobbing. I just don't have have the widescreen golf course in my routine here, but that's a ton of fun. You just gather up all the enemies, and then with like 5 to 10 swings, you just kill the whole golf course due to the fact that you're getting so many explosions. And yeah, overall, yes, I am very pleased with this build, but I gotta say, I'm just pleased with it because it does well for what it is, a VATS melee build. Overall, I'm still kind of disappointed by how little viable, I mean, there's certainly a word to describe something that's little viable, but yeah, I'm not a native speaker, so forgive me here. That's melee gameplay is. Like, it's clearly a thing Bethesda envisioned due to the fact that, yeah, we have these legendary perks that benefit it, and nowadays we even have the legendary perks, legendary effects on melee weapons, but the thing is, contrary to ranged weapons, melee weapons do have a benefit. outside of VATS that you can hardly recreate in VATS, and that is power attacks. Now you can recreate power attacks in VATS, and if you combine them with crits, that means you can do massive amounts of damage in a single swing, but in VATS you can only do that by sprinting, because every sprint attack is an automatic power attack, but yeah, once you're using crits and everything, you need a lot of investment in order to make... Oopsie. We're stuck. Okay, gladly we are on a melee character, so we unstuck ourselves here. And yeah, back to the topic. You have to do a lot of investment in order to make a VATS melee build work, which certainly means you can do it. As you can see here, we're doing rather well. The thing is just, with way less investment, you can achieve pretty similar results outside of VATS, just using power attacks constantly, and the only thing you need to do in order to make powerful power attacks viable is have some decent amount of agility, and you want to have strength anyways for your power armor, for your melee build. So that's basically all you have to do, and yeah. I don't know, it seems a little bit unbalanced, but that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who ever played Fallout 76. Balance is definitely not the greatest strength of this game. But yeah, if you want to do, all I want to say is, if you want to do a VATS melee build and don't, and can't be bothered with, or how should I say it, if you want to do a VATS melee build and don't worry about not having the greatest damage output ever, you can certainly do it, and it's a lot of fun. That's basically everything I wanted to say, and I think the gameplay speaks for itself. I still wish we could have fought the Scorch Beast here, but I think you can imagine how it would went, right? Basically, that could be the moment where maybe you have to resort to a nuke called a Quantum or anything like that in order to refresh your AP a little bit faster so you can stay in VATS for longer, but that's about it. Now, I think we're done here in terms of gameplay, and we can now move on to take a look at the build itself. One thing in terms of aesthetics, I think I'm very pleased with how the build turned out, and yeah, firstly, I know this power armor here is kind of controversial, let's say. A lot of people find it super ugly and not fitting, but I actually quite like it. I think it fits Fallout in a way pretty good. Just think about stuff like the Mechanist, the Antagonizer, the Pack Raiders from Nuka World. Like, these kind of things aren't really strangers to the Fallout universe, and yeah, the Maritime Menace is definitely just some wacky guy who tries to envision himself as one of the Unstoppables or something like that. And even though on first glance the Tenderizer might not seem like the most obvious choice when it comes to this character in terms of visuals, actually, from all I know, the head of the Tenderizer is a marine mine. That's at least what I've been told. Now, I always thought it was kind of a beer keg or something like that, but yeah, I think I heard that it should be a sea mine, or at least it looks like one. And anyways, I think it works rather well. So let's move on from here. Firstly, we're going to take a look at our mutations, and here you can see them. Carnivore, Eagle Eyes are still suppressed, and yeah, looks like we even went through at least a part of the gameplay part here with the debuff from Bird Bones. So at least the super mutant fight there should have been with that debuff. So you can see it doesn't really matter too much here. And yeah, let's get right into it. We do have Bird Bones, Carnivore, Chameleon, Eagle Eyes, Grounded, Healing Factor, Marsupial, Scaly Skin, and Speed Demon. So right off the bat, there's some useless things here. We're mainly talking about Chameleon and thought I had Talons. Yeah, there it is. Sorry, it wasn't quite down there. And the Talons mutation. Those two don't really add anything to us. I mean, Chameleon doesn't have any downside, so it's just a leftover. And Talons, it's similar. I left it in because, yeah, as I said, this is my melee guy, and for the most, or rather often, I do need talents, and, you know, removing a certain mutation is always kind of a gamble, and it could be that I have to remove half of my mutations in order to regain them. And ultimately, we're just gaining -1 to our agility here, which obviously, if you would want to dedicate your whole build to this playstyle, talents would be useless because we can't even use unarmed weapons in power armor. And yeah, even though it's just one -2 agility, that would be one too much if it's not necessary. So you could leave that out. But in terms of the useful effects here, we do have Bird Bones, which seems like a non-obvious choice, but ultimately we do need every single action point that we can get in this game. So even though we do reduce our strength by 1, I think that was a compromise that was fair here, just for staying in vest longer, and that's basically it. Another good benefit is that, yeah, if you're using power armor and Marsupial, if you jump, even from tiny ledges, you often end up getting into the stagger animation when your character is doing the superhero landing in power armor, which is kind of annoying in my opinion, as cool as it is. And Bird Bones really helps with that because, yeah, you're just falling slower and not always get into this animation. Then we do have Carnivore, which is just a very good mutation when it comes to melee enemies. Um, melee builds. Because a lot of the good buffs for melee, extra strength buffs, extra melee damage buffs, come from roasted meats. Talk about Yaoguai ribs, mutant hound meat, Deathclaw steaks, and you get the thrill. Now, on this occasion, you could actually do with Herbivore just by means of boosting your crit damage, which could be beneficial, but overall, I think Carnivore was the better decision here. Then, as I said, we do have Chameleon. We see rather a benefit nor a negative or downside to it, so we can just ignore that. And next on the list, we do have Eagle Eyes. Now, Eagle Eyes was actually a mutation I was not quite sure about because one part of its benefits is completely lost to us. The extra perception part. You either have a hit chance of 95 with vets, with melee weapons and vets, or you have no hit chance at all. So extra perception doesn't really help you in any way. So we're basically just using this mutation for the 25% extra crit damage, which isn't a ton combining it with all of the other buffs that we do have. It's just a little bit more damage, so ultimately I wasn't really sure if it was too beneficial here, because you can't see it at the moment as it is suppressed, but we do get -1 strength from this mutation too in just a few minutes. But ultimately I decided for it because, yeah, as I said, we do run class freak anyway, so yeah, -1 strength, we can live with that. On paper, -1 strength means -5% additive damage to our overall damage, which isn't a ton, and yeah, 25% additive damage on every second hit, because every second hit is a crit, balance this out quite easily, I guess. So overall, we're probably seeing more benefit from the extra crit damage than we see negatives from the negative strength. But I had 1 point in maths when I did my graduation, so please don't trust me on that. You could count it through, do the maths, but ultimately I think you can't go wrong either way. The benefit and the negative are both not that big, so a lot of talk for not a lot actually. Then we do have Grounded, -12% to energy damage and energy resistance +100. Now, this is a bit of a lost mutation as well, just a leftover, because energy damage actually isn't a concern to us because we are running the electric absorption perk, meaning that energy damage rather heals us than damaging us anyway, so increasing our resistance to it isn't really necessary here. The other thing is, though, that the downside to it, energy gun damage, doesn't do anything to us as well because we're not using any energy guns. Simple as that. So even if the benefit from energy resistance is negligible, we don't have a downside, so I just left it in here. Then we do have Healing Factor, another one that is suppressed at the moment, giving us 300% health regen outside of combat, which is a bit of a number that you can't really do anything with, but you've probably seen it during the video. if we get out of a fight with 20, 30, 40% health, doesn't really matter. Within a few seconds, we are back to full health, meaning that not every encounter ends with us using a stim pack, and ultimately just helps us maintaining a healthy supply of stim packs, which we will use during fights, but I will talk about that later. And yeah, next on the list, we do have Marsupial, which is self-explanatory. More jump height, more carry weight is just universally good, and -1 intelligence is negligible. Then we do have Scaly Skin, which is a little bit of a one that hurts us, but -12 IP with Class Freak isn't too crazy. It's basically not even a single swing from our Tenderizer, so we can accept that debuff, even though we wouldn't really need energy and damage resistant. But we're not in the craziest suit of power armor because we just had to make sacrifices and work what we have, so a bit of extra resistance wouldn't hurt, probably. Then we have Speed Demon for faster movement speed. I'm not reloading anything on this build, so that is a bit of a lost cause here, but the faster movement speed in and of itself is worth it to me, just because, yeah, closing the gap between a target and yourself while sprinting at them faster is just a nice thing to have. So, yeah, that's why it's in there. Talents we already talked about, and lastly we do have Twisted Muscles, which is the single most beneficial perk on this list. Sorry, mutation on this list. 25% extra melee damage is very good. Chance to cripple is nice, even though we try to kill enemies in 1 to 2 hits most of the times. But especially once we're fighting bigger targets, yeah, the cripple chance is nice to have. And negative to gun accuracy doesn't hurt us at all because we're not using any guns. So, simple as that. Maybe could be interesting to look at our special stats for once. I often forget to do that, but yeah. We do have 17 strength. The debuff from Eagle Eyes is still not there, so overall, once that's kicking in, we should be at 16 strength. Perception is at 5, which, as I said, is useless. Endurance is rather low at rank 3, so we are not being the tankiest guys in the world, even though we are in power armor, but we're getting to that in a second. Then we do have Charisma at 1, rather rare occasion here. Most of the times I have something ranging between 3 to 7 endurance, but on this occasion we had to make do with 1. Talk about that later. There's a lot of compromise in this build, because yeah, if you're trying to do vats and melee and power armor, yeah, there's a lot. Now power armor is negligible, but especially combining vats with melee means that you have a lot of perk investments that are mandatory to the build, so there's a lot of room for compromise here. Let's put it that way. Intelligence at 5, which is rather low, and here's most importantly agility and luck, together with strength, but I would even argue that agility and luck here are a bit more important, and mostly luck 23. So let's take a look at our equipment. First and foremost here we do have this anti-armor Tenderizer with 50% extra limb damage and a critical meter that fills 15% faster, as I already told you in the video. Not a lot to talk about here. We do have the peppered modification, which makes it just more powerful. So overall, yeah, I hope you have access to this weapon, but I think it shouldn't be hard. People can just craft it for you, and you can then use legendary crafting in order to get a good version of it. So I think it should be achievable to get something like this. As I said, extra vats crit damage would be nice here. There's an argument for extra swing speed, probably the best damage output, but I would still prefer better vats crits on this occasion, just to double down on what we're doing here, and for once not use a swing speed version. And even then, I think swing speed, while it definitely would improve your overall DPS, we're always trying to balance our combat with our AP refresh. So fighting faster not necessarily means that we're better on this occasion, if that makes sense, because yeah, we do have a means of regenerating AP while in vats, but it takes some time. So we're not really trying to break any speed records here. We're trying to do consistent damage and yeah, stay alive. That's basically it. Other than that, not a lot to say about the weapon. The condition sadly isn't the greatest. We didn't really have room for 5 points of investment into Makeshift Warrior, which would have been nice, but I think it's manageable. Basically, we started the video with 200% condition, so we could go on for like half an hour to 45 minutes more of this fighting before we have to repair the weapon to 200%, which, as I said, isn't the greatest, but not the worst either. Then we go on to our power armor, which on this occasion is a bit more interesting. Now, the only real interesting thing here is, in terms of legendary effects, is that every single piece here has luck. We don't have crazy other effects, though. Yeah, we do have troubleshooters, which is nice. We have 2 pieces. Robots can be quite dangerous, so 30% less damage from robots is definitely not a bad thing here. And yeah, 1 Vanguard's piece, which is a little bit lost, but yeah. The important factor here is that every single piece has extra luck. And in terms of modifications, on the torso, we do have the Kinetic Dynamo. That's a topic I just touched upon a little bit. And what the Kinetic Dynamo does is it regenerates health when you're taking damage. Now, on paper, this seems a little bit stupid if you have something like, how's it called? Optimized Dynamo? No. Anyways, there's a modification that just makes it so you can regenerate AP faster. And with faster, I mean really fast. Like, it's probably as good as 2 or 3 powered pieces, just from top of my head here. And yeah, so on paper, the Kinetic Dynamo seems just like a weaker version because it only works when you're getting hit. But it has one benefit to it, which is this is one of only 2 mechanics in the game, as far as I'm aware, that can actually regenerate your AP while you are in combat. Sorry, 3 versions now. You do have Grim Reaper Sprint, which means if you're killing an enemy in vats, you have a chance to completely refill your AP, which is the single best of these mechanics, in my opinion. Then you have Inertial, which I just forgot about, which is a new legendary effect that makes it so you can regenerate 15 AP when hitting an enemy, when killing an enemy in vats, which is nice but not too crazy. But yeah, then you have this here Kinetic Dynamo, and I don't know the numbers about it, but it does regenerate health while you are in stealth. Sorry, in vats. Um, I didn't really have the time to show that off specifically in the video, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, just go back like 5 minutes when I was fighting the super mutants, and you will clearly be able to see that at certain points in the video. It's not crazy regeneration. It's not massive. I was really hoping that this was a bit more efficient, meaning that we can stay in vets for a long time, especially when fighting super mutants. But it's still worth it in my opinion. Now, especially if you're fighting ranged enemies, because all of them can target you and can damage you while you are killing them. When it comes to melee enemies, it's not as beneficial because they usually take their time to hit you and you're not getting hit as often. But ultimately, yeah, it is a beneficial modification, and I think the best version here. And yeah, in terms of the legs, one's a radar leg that's not modified at all. I think we have one with the cooling vents. Yeah, I was wrong in the beginning of the video, so we take 5% less fusion core drainage. I mean, obviously, if you go for leg modifications in a perfect world, you would just go for calibrated shocks to increase your carry weight. And the arms are not modified. I mean, we could do the optimized bracers just so if we are not using VATS or out of AP, we can easier use power attacks with less AP cost. But to be honest, we just want to regenerate our AP to the point that we can use VATS again. So yeah, that wouldn't be too beneficial either. And well, that was it. The helmet could be interesting. It's just level 40. I just realized that I'm not sure why I picked that up, but didn't really matter too much to me. But we do have the targeting HUD here, which is just interesting flavor. I mean, it's the modification that highlights living targets near you. I never thought it to be too crazy, but it's just a nice visual perk. And yeah, let's move on to the perks, which is probably the most interesting part here. But really, this is one of the builds that really comes together through everything. Like everything matters. Equipment, mutations, like every single piece on this build is a compromise. And yeah, firstly, we do have strength. Here is definitely nothing too surprising. We do have all the Slugger perks maxed out for maximum damage that's possible with these Slugger perks. And we do have Martial Artist and Incisor maxed out. Rather straightforward. So yeah, more armor penetration, even if you already have a anti-armor weapon. I think this is very beneficial. And trust me when I say I was, as I said, using this weapon and this build on another uh, character overall without access to these perks here. I ended up having, I think, rank 2 of Incisor, rank 2 of Martial Artist, and rank 1 of 2 Slugger perks, and it was a chore. But the most beneficial thing was still Incisor, which was surprising to me because, yeah, as I said, we already have 50% more armor penetration from our legendary effect, so I thought Incisor would be a little bit over the top, but it definitely is one of the better effects. Then martial artist, which is very crucial. I touched upon it earlier. Like I would not prefer swing speed actually on this build, but yeah, martial artist is the minimum. Like if you have a swing speed version, I would probably think about not using martial artist and use blocker instead or something like that. But yeah, a bit of investment into swing speed is not wrong, definitely. I just wanted to not go over the top with it. And then we do have the Slugger perks, which are self-explanatory, more damage here. In terms of perception, we have one rank of concentrated fire, which is not useful in any way, by the way. It's just there because I had, as you can see, no access to anything else. I needed to scrap a whole lot here in order to um, get my legendary luck up. I mean, you could go with one rank of glow sight or something like that to just give you some situational damage bonus, but overall, there's nothing you desperately need here. In terms of endurance, we are rather low at 3. We only have rank 3 of Fireproof because I think if you have to decide, um, Fireproof is probably always the best choice. I mean, if you have a dense chest piece on a normal armor set, you could live without it without a problem, but especially in power armor, yeah, Fireproof is probably your best option if you only have 3 points of endurance to use. Um, 3 points of endurance is basically a consequence of two things. Now, first and foremost, as I said, we do have a ton of perk points that we need, especially using strength, agility, and 15 luck. I wanted to have all of these maxed out. Um, so, yeah, there just wasn't a lot of room. I had to have some dump stats, and as you can see here, this is a very min-maxed character when it comes to that department. We do have 3 stats maxed out, and we do have 3 stats nearly at their minimum. And while this was initially something that I didn't really like, I actually found out that the amount of damage you're taking seems to influence the amount of AP you're getting from the Kinetic Dynamo. So ultimately, taking a lot of damage during a fight is not even all that bad for your character because you can directly convert that into damage output. It's a bit complicated, but overall, it really isn't. It's just hard for me to explain exactly what I mean. But yeah, I think due to the fact that we are in power armor, we're still not flimsy. That's the important thing. We very rarely die. I earlier fought a legendary, no, so not a legendary, a Yaoguai horde, which was one of the rare occasions where I actually started sweating a little bit because, yeah, you can imagine those guys were staggering me left, right, and center. But even then, I managed to do the whole event without dying due to the fact that yeah we do get benefits from Born Survivor, so we're not instantly dying, and yeah in power armor you can spam multiple stim packs, so therefore yeah we're not too flimsy. It's actually okay. It's just I'm used to being more tanky in power armor characters. That's all I wanted to say. Then we do have charisma, strange numbers. I mean, if you're only having charisma at 1, there's hardly any better choice than strange numbers. I usually don't run in teams, but yeah, that's because oftentimes I rely on Lone Wanderer. But yeah, on this occasion, while the extra AP refresh from Lone Wanderer would have been really neat, and also the extra damage from Tenderizer would have been really cool, I just didn't have the points to spare it. So we had to live without them. Simple as that. But on the positive side, strange in numbers. If you are in a team that's mutated, you actually get more damage from it due to the fact that you do get a damage buff from the Talon's mutation. So overall, our mutations are really beneficial on this occasion, and being in a team with mutated team partners, yeah, that could actually really increase your overall effectiveness. Then we do have Intelligence, which is at rank 6. We do have First Aid and Power User. Now, arguably, you could have used the 3 points from First Aid and convert them into Tenderizer here, but due to the fact that my legendary perks that I was using worked out, I actually couldn't really do that combination unless I would have leveled up another legendary perk and so on. So yeah, keep in mind that's something you could do in order to squeeze out a little bit more damage, but ultimately I found First Aid to be quite beneficial because, as I said, we are rather flimsy for a power armor character and rely on Born Survivor to keep us alive, so that's a good decision, in my opinion, to use First Aid. We do have a little bit of a debuff to our effectiveness when it comes to stim packs anyways, so buffing them again isn't a bad decision, and it means that, yeah, we can basically just during fights, the amount of stim packs we are burning through is way lower. So that's just all I wanted to say. And then we have Power User. You can definitely live without it on this occasion. I decided to leave it in just to really make it that I don't have to worry about fusion cores whatsoever. I started with 5 fusion cores and I'm now up to 9 um, without ever bothering to actually search for them or anything. So yeah, it's surprising, really. This is something I definitely thought I had to invest a little bit more into when I was starting the character. But yeah, I was really surprised to find out that that's melee combat doesn't drain your fusion cores like crazy. It's actually really easy to maintain your fusion cores. Then you do have agility at 15. We do have Action Boy, very critical perk here. We do just need every single bit of AP refresh that we can get our hands on and that we can afford, meaning that it is in the right perk tree that we also need in order to get the passive benefits from the perks. From the stats. Agility, in that case, action points for vats. So yeah, Action Boy, rather self-explanatory. Then we do have Born Survivor, already talked a lot about it. Automatically injecting a stim pack at 20% health. Would love to go higher, but yeah, I will talk about that in a second. Then we do have rank 3 of Gunfu. Even though we are rather rarely seeing 3 or 4 enemies being killed in vats in a row, it definitely happens from time to time, and if it does, it really is beneficial, so therefore I wanted to go with rank 3 here. Then we do have Adrenaline, one of the probably most straightforward perk choices in the whole build here. Yeah, very often the case that I'm using Adrenaline, so yeah, it's just a good perk, more damage when fights going on and you kill multiple enemies in a certain amount of time, so yeah, not a lot to talk about here. And lastly, we do a Through Hiker. This would be a perk I wouldn't really use at all if I had the option, but if I had the time, I would have maxed out Born Survivor. So it procs at 40% health, meaning that we can definitely go into battles a bit more carefree than we are currently doing, and just use one rank of Through Hiker or something. The thing is, we just want to have agility maxed out, and that means with all these perks here, we will, even if we're not using Through Hiker, end up with one perk point we just have to spend on something. Another good addition would be maybe rank 1 of Enforcer and just carry a reduced weight shotgun in order to cripple Scorch Beast. That could possibly be a better decision. But it's not a completely lost perk on this occasion because, yeah, as I said, there are a lot of food buffs that you can use in order to buff your melee character. Never a bad decision, and if you really dedicate yourself to doing a melee character all of the time, you should certainly always have some roasted Deathclaw steaks, some roasted Yaoguai ribs, some mutant hound meat, and so on. Mutant hound chops, I think they're called, on your character. And there are also some very good buffs to agility and so on. For example, crispy squirrel bits, I think, rather easy to come by, and they give you 4 extra agility, which would be neat on this occasion. So keep that in mind. And lastly, we do have luck here. We do have Class Freak, which is a very obvious choice on this occasion. Now, I tend to not use it all that often because, yeah, most of the times I don't have a problem living with the debuffs from my mutations. But on this occasion, yeah, we have just such contradicting mutations that we do need Class Freak. There's no way around it. I talked about it when I was talking about the mutations themselves. Then we do have Starch Genes, very obvious. Um, yeah, keep the mutations we want, don't get any new ones. So that's basically it. And now we get to the meat of it all. Critical Savvy, Better Criticals, and Grim Reaper Sprint. So Critical Savvy and Better Criticals is the combination that makes it so that we... Critical Savvy makes it so that we can get a crit on every second hit, in combination with the fact that we do have 23 luck. And the vats crits filling faster legendary effect on our weapon. And yeah, with the crit on every second hit, Better Criticals becomes more effective than ever before. This is basically the max amount of crits that you can get. Now, you can, as far as I found out, it's a bit hard to verify, theoretically get 2 crits in a row if you kill an enemy with a crit and do have the Psychopath perk, you have a chance to do a second crit. I'm going to explore that in another video a little bit, but I first want to make sure that this is correct. But anyways, doesn't really have to do with this build here. So I think this combination should be rather clear on this occasion, and then we do have Grim Reaper Sprint, which is, on this occasion, very important. As I said, managing our AP is one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to this build. So yeah, having the ability to sometimes restore all action points when we're killing an enemy is just necessary on this occasion. And that brings us to our legendary perks, and on this occasion here we do have legendary agility, legendary strength, and legendary luck. And if you are, I mean, there's no way for you to know this, but unless you counted all of the perk points together and know how much you can maximum get. Anyways, what I'm talking about here is none of these are reflected in that we can get more perks from them, because every single one of these stats, agility, strength, and luck, is already maxed out, and we are just increasing them with legendary agility, strength, and luck in order to get more of the passive bonus. Passive bonus means agility over 15 means even more action points, which are very useful and mandatory for our build. Legendary strength over 15 means more damage output, even though if it's not crazy much. But yeah, we also get a little bit more carry weight, but that's kind of a side thing here. We're actually looking for the damage output. And legendary luck, this is just making it so our critical meter fills faster, and with critical savvy and the legendary effect on our weapon combined, this is necessary. And with all of the luck pieces on our power armor. And then we do have electric absorption, hack and slash, and power sprinter. So electric absorption, I just don't want to live on a power armor character that doesn't have electric absorption. It also makes it so, I mean, it also make it basically it does what it says. It recharges your fusion core from time to time when you're getting attacked by a by an energy weapon, especially working well on fast firing energy weapons. Talking about flamers, talking about Gatling lasers, and so on. I mean, a flamer technically doesn't do energy damage anymore, but in terms of this perk, it does. And yeah, the more important thing, obviously, or well, not obviously, but in my opinion, is it's healing you, so it makes you more tanky. Comes in very handy when you're fighting robots or super mutants, as there tend to always be at least 1 or 2 of them wielding energy weapons or doing energy damage to you, healing you in the process. Then we do have hack and slash. 30% chance for melee vats attacks to do area damage. You saw it, happens quite regularly. And while the explosive perks for ranged attacks or explosive builds are a bit lost in my opinion, like especially far-flung fireworks, it seems to trigger very rarely, and if it does, it has a very close range, so it's more of a novelty in my opinion. Hack and Slash actually is a great perk in my opinion. It really does a lot of damage. The fact that you're not having to kill an enemy, but you can actually get the damage to the enemy that you're attacking, means that even if you're not fighting a group of enemies, it can be very useful, and it does very good damage. So yeah, I really wanted to use this. I would have loved to use collateral damage in addition to that to make even more explosions happen, but yeah, there just wasn't any room for it. I would have had to leave out on one of the other options here, and I could have maybe not used Power Sprinter, but as you can see, there are 20% less action point cost for sprinting and power armor. Um, while it doesn't seem like a crazy good amount, it actually made the performance of the build way better. Like if I could max out this perk, it's the first time ever that I really looking into it and find it useful. On most occasions, I thought that it was rather yeah, it was a loss in terms of in combination with or no, in comparison with other legendary effects. But for this specific character, I find it very useful. So yeah, we're sadly missing out on a little bit of damage when it comes to that. And yeah, that was it. Like, whew, that was a mouthful. It's one of the more, well, I wouldn't say complicated builds that I've done, but a more intricate build. Like, there's definitely a bit more that we have to talk about here than with other builds. It's not as straightforward, but ultimately, that made it so I had a ton of fun with it because it was so special. Actually, playing this build really feels different to all the other ones, and despite it not being the most powerful build in the game or something, I really didn't have a single moment where I was frustrated with it once it came together. Like as I said in the beginning, just working on the build, um, I actually was convinced I would not finish it and not uh, actually put it on YouTube. But yeah, as it turned out, I had a ton of fun. I found that now everything comes together. It's actually quite effective, and I had a ton of fun. The only thing I could say ultimately, if I had to give my ultimate decision about this build, is it's a shame that once you're putting so much effort into a into a Vats melee build, it doesn't really pay off too well because yeah, you can just perform very similarly, if not better, without Vats. That's my concern here. But on that note, I would say glad you watched the video. Hope you liked it, and see you next time, guys. Bye.